The great ship Odyssey floated in the darkness of space, its lights blinking against the black void as it approached the massive Viridian mothership. Inside the human vessel, Dr. Alan Foster looked out the viewport, his gray hair neatly combed, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. At 62 years old, he had never imagined he would be among the first humans to meet an alien race. Beside him stood Ambassador Susan Hayes, 71, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, and Lieutenant Olivia Garcia, 35, whose dark eyes scanned the alien ship with professional interest. "Remember," Ambassador Hayes said quietly, "we are representing all of humanity today. No matter what they say or do, we must remain diplomatic." Dr. Foster nodded. "The Viridians have been communicating with us for months now. They seem peaceful enough." "Peaceful doesn't mean friendly," Lieutenant Garcia reminded them, adjusting her uniform. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours." The ship docked with a gentle shudder. The three humans waited as the airlock cycled, each lost in their own thoughts. When the doors finally slid open, they were greeted by a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and large, almond-shaped eyes. Ambassador Krell of the Viridian High Council. "Welcome, humans," Krell said, his voice translated through their earpieces. "We are pleased you have journeyed to meet us." The delegation followed Krell through corridors of gleaming metal and pulsing light. Dr. Foster couldn't help but marvel at the ship's design, organic yet mechanical, as if grown rather than built. They were led to a large chamber where 5 other Viridians waited, seated around a crescent-shaped table. "The High Council welcomes Earth's representatives," Krell announced. "Please, introduce yourselves." Ambassador Hayes stepped forward first. "I am Susan Hayes, Ambassador of the United Earth Council. I have served in diplomatic roles for 43 years, and am honored to represent humanity today." A murmur passed through the aliens. Krell tilted his head. "Pardon my confusion. Did you say 43 years? "Yes," Hayes replied. "Nearly half my life." Another alien, with deeper blue skin and what appeared to be age markings on her neck, leaned forward. "And what is your total age, Ambassador Hayes?" "I am 71 Earth years old." The chamber fell silent. The aliens exchanged glances that even humans could recognize as surprise. Dr. Foster was next. "I am Dr. Alan Foster, xenobiologist. I have studied life forms across Earth for 38 years. I am 62. Again, the strange reaction from the aliens. When Lieutenant Garcia introduced herself as 35, one of the younger-looking, aliens actually made a sound that the translators didn't catch. Ambassador Krell composed himself. "Please forgive our reaction. We were unprepared for this information. We had studied your broadcasts and data transmissions, but we misunderstood certain aspects of human biology." The elder female alien spoke. "I am Elder Melora. I have served on the High Council for 90 years. My age is 426 cycles, which converts to roughly 463 of your Earth years." Dr. Foster couldn't hide his surprise. 463? "Yes," Krell continued. "The average Viridian lives to see 500 cycles. Our eldest reached 712 before joining the cosmic flow." The humans exchanged glances. Lieutenant Garcia whispered, 700 years? We were unaware of the... Krell paused, searching for a diplomatic word. "Brevity of human existence. This explains much about your civilization's development patterns." "Ambassador," Hayes maintained her composure. "Different species evolve different lifespans. Ours has served us well." "Of course," Krell said, but his tone carried something else. Pity, perhaps. "It is remarkable what your kind has achieved in such limited time." The meeting continued, covering trade possibilities, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation. Throughout the discussion, Dr. Foster noticed the Viridians kept returning to questions about human lifespans. "How do you train your scientists?" Elder Melora asked. "If education takes 20 years and career development another 20, you have so little time to contribute before..." She didn't finish the sentence. "We work efficiently," Dr. Foster replied. Our limited time gives us motivation. And your children, another council member asked, how do they cope with seeing their parents die so quickly? Ambassador Hayes intervened. Perhaps we should focus on diplomatic matters rather than biological differences. Of course, Krell agreed, but added, it is just difficult to imagine such mayfly existences. You must live in constant desperation. Later, as the humans were shown to their quarters, Dr. Foster noticed how the Viridian guides treated them, like children, or perhaps terminal patients. Their voices carried excessive gentleness. Their explanations were simplistic, and they repeatedly offered to slow down so the humans could rest. In the privacy of their shared common room, Lieutenant Garcia paced angrily. Did you see how they looked at us like we're some kind of tragic case study? They're processing new information, Ambassador Hayes said calmly. We must be patient. Dr. Foster sat quietly, reviewing notes on his tablet. Something wasn't adding, but during the meeting he had observed the Viridians carefully. When they learned of human lifespans, their pupils had contracted, their breathing patterns changed, and some displayed micro-expressions that didn't match their words of pity. There's something they're not telling us, he said finally. What do you mean? Hayes asked. Their reaction wasn't just surprise or pity. There was something else, almost like fear, or perhaps envy. And they asked too many questions about how we cope with our short lives, as if they're looking for something. That night, Dr. Foster couldn't sleep. He reviewed Earth's historical data on longevity and evolution. No species lived longer than it needed to. Extended lifespans required massive biological resources. What advantage did the Viridians gain from living centuries? And what had they lost? He thought about how quickly humans adapted, how intensely they felt, how rapidly they learned. Perhaps their shorter lives weren't a disadvantage, but a different evolutionary strategy altogether. As the artificial night cycle continued on the alien ship, Dr. Foster began formulating a hypothesis that would eventually change how both species understood consciousness itself. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Ambassador Krell was reporting to a private session of the High Council. The humans process information at rates we didn't think possible in carbon-based organisms. Their neural densities are unprecedented. We need to study them more closely before proceeding with any agreements. Elder Melora nodded gravely. If our theories are correct, these short-lived creatures may experience more in their brief existence than we comprehend. The implications are disturbing. 6 weeks after the first meeting with the Viridians, Dr. Alan Foster sat in his lab back on Earth, surrounded by holographic displays of alien cellular structures. The room was cluttered with equipment, coffee cups, and data tablets. Outside, his window, the Seattle skyline, glittered in the rain. He hadn't slept properly in days. You look terrible, said Dr. Nancy Williams as she entered the lab. She placed a fresh cup of coffee on his desk and peered at his work. At 47, she was the world's leading cellular biologist, with bright eyes and an easy smile that hit a brilliant mind. Have you seen this? Dr. Foster pointed to a simulation of Viridian cell division. Their cellular repair mechanisms are nothing like ours. They don't just slow aging, they experience time differently at a biological level. Dr. Williams leaned closer. You're not making sense, Alan. I know it sounds crazy. He ran a hand through his gray hair. But look at their neural signals, compared to ours. He pulled up new images showing brainwave patterns, human ones racing in rapid, complex patterns, while Viridian patterns moved in slower, more measured waves. I think we're processing reality at different speeds, he said. We need someone who understands quantum biology. Get Paul Martinez on the team. 3 days later, Dr. Paul Martinez arrived. At 39, he was younger than his colleagues, but had already revolutionized the field of temporal physics. He studied the data for 2 days straight, barely speaking to anyone. On the third morning, he gathered Foster and Williams in the conference room. You're right, he said simply. The Viridians experience time at roughly 1/5 our rate. Their neurons fire slower, their cellular processes happen slower, even their perception of external stimuli is slower. Dr. Williams shook her head. But they move normally when we interact with them. They don't seem slow. Because they've adapted, Martinez explained. Their muscles and motor functions compensate for their slower neural processing. But inside, mentally and emotionally, they're experiencing less life per minute than we are. Across the galaxy, the Viridian Academy of Xenobiology was holding its annual symposium. Ambassador Krell stood before a large audience, showing recordings of human activities. As you can see, he said, gesturing to footage of a human marketplace, they move through life at remarkable speed. A human child learns language in merely 2 years, reaches sexual maturity around 12, and is considered fully adult by 18. The audience murmured in amazement. Their average lifespan is 78 years, Krell continued. Some reach 100, but this is rare. Yet despite this brevity, they have built complex societies, developed spaceflight, and created art of surprising depth. A young scientist named Talara raised her hand. How do they accomplish meaningful work? If education takes 20 years and career mastery takes another 20, they have so little time left to contribute. This is what makes them fascinating, Krell replied. They seem driven by their limited lifespans. They don't wait for consensus or perfect solutions. They act, even with incomplete information. Elder Melora, sitting in the front row, spoke up. It explains their recklessness with their environment and resources. When you live such a short time, you cannot see the long consequences of your actions. The audience nodded in agreement, their expressions a mixture of pity and superiority. After the symposium, recordings of human activities became popular entertainment among young Viridians. They watched humans dancing, arguing, playing sports, all with the fascination of watching exotic animals. Look how quickly they move, one young Viridian said to another. Watching humans play basketball. Their whole lives must feel like a blur. I can't imagine living that way, his friend replied, never having time to truly think or feel deeply. How sad. Back on Earth, Ambassador Hayes received reports of these attitudes and called Dr. Foster. They're treating us like a curiosity, she said angrily. Almost like pets or children. It's affecting our negotiations for technology exchange. I'm not surprised, Foster replied, but I think we're close to understanding what's really happening with their longevity. In his lab, Dr. Martinez had built a special device, a neural interface that could temporarily adjust human perception to match Viridian rates. I'm going to try it, Dr. Foster announced one morning. It's not been properly tested, Dr. Williams protested. We don't have time for more tests, Foster said. The Viridians are coming for another diplomatic visit next week. We need answers before then. Martinez helped him attach the device to his temples. It will slow your perception for 5 minutes. Ready? Foster nodded. Martinez activated the device. The world instantly changed. Everything moved in fast forward. Williams and Martinez became blurs of motion, their words rising to unintelligible squeaks. The clock on the wall spun wildly. Foster tried to lift his hand and found it took enormous concentration to move at all. After what felt like an hour to Foster, Martinez deactivated the device. In reality, only 5 minutes had passed. What happened? Williams asked, concerned by Foster's pale face. I saw... Foster struggled to find words. I saw how they experience reality. It was like watching life through a high-speed camera. No wonder they live so long. They're barely experiencing each moment compared to us. What does this mean? Williams asked. Martinez leaned forward, his eyes bright with excitement. It means a human experiences more life in 70 years than a Viridian does in 300. We pack more thought, more feeling, more experience into each minute than they can comprehend. Foster nodded slowly. We don't live less than them. We live more intensely, more fully. We might have shorter lives, but they're deeper lives. Meanwhile, on the Viridian homeworld, Talara worked alone in her private lab. Unlike her colleagues, she wasn't satisfied with the standard explanation of human lifespans. Something about the visitors had fascinated her. She studied the brain scans taken during the human's visit, comparing them to Viridian patterns. What? She saw made her gasp. The humans' minds worked at speeds that should have been impossible for biological organisms. "They're not living shorter lives," she whispered to herself. "They're living faster ones." She remembered an old legend from Viridian history, that long ago their ancestors had lived briefly but brightly, until genetic engineering had extended their lives by slowing their internal processes. The records called it the Great Trade, but some ancient texts spoke of a loss, the loss of vivid time. Talara made a decision. She would speak to Ambassador Krell before the next meeting with the humans. Perhaps what they had mocked as a weakness was actually something precious, that the Viridians had forgotten. The day before the Viridian delegation was set to arrive back on Earth, Dr. Foster and his team worked frantically to prepare their presentation. Their lab had become a second home, with sleeping bags tucked into corners and empty food containers piling up in the trash. "We need to make this simple enough for both species to understand," Dr. Foster said, looking over the slides Dr. Williams had prepared. "The implications are huge." Dr. Martinez nodded, sipping his coffee. "I've built 3 more perception devices. We can let the Viridians experience human time flow if they're willing. And I've adjusted one to let us experience their perception permanently if needed," Williams added. "Though I can't imagine why anyone would want to." Foster looked at their work with pride. In just 6 weeks they had uncovered something fundamental about consciousness itself. Now they just needed to make the aliens understand. On the Viridian ship approaching Earth, Talara stood before Ambassador Krell and Elder Melora, her research displayed on the chamber walls. "I believe we have misunderstood the humans," she said. "Their minds don't just work faster than ours, they experience reality at a fundamentally different rate." "This is not new information," Elder Melora said dismissively. "We know they live brief, hurried lives." "No," Talara insisted, her usual deference forgotten in her excitement. "It's not about length, it's about density. Look at these neural activity scans." The display showed human and Viridian brain activity side by side. The human patterns flashed with intense, complex bursts of activity. The Viridian patterns moved in slower, more measured waves. "In 1 Earth minute, a human experiences roughly 5 times more conscious moments than we do," Talara explained. "Their emotions are more intense, their thoughts more rapid, they're learning faster." Krell leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. "What are you suggesting?" "That we have been wrong to pity them," Talara said. "A human who lives 70 years may subjectively experience as much as a Viridian who lives 350 years. Elder Melora shook her head. "This is speculation based on limited data." "Perhaps," Talara admitted. "But there's more. I found references in our ancient archives about our species before the longevity treatments. Our ancestors once experienced what was called vivid time, a state of consciousness more like the humans. We traded it for longer lives." The chamber fell silent. Finally, Krell spoke. "We will keep your research in mind during the diplomatic meetings, but speak of this to no one else for now." On Earth, the Viridian ship landed at the newly built Interspecies Diplomatic Center in Geneva. Crowds gathered behind barriers, eager for a glimpse of the aliens. News drones hovered overhead, broadcasting the event worldwide. Ambassador Hayes greeted the Viridian delegation formally. "Welcome back to Earth. We hope this visit will strengthen the bonds between our species." Ambassador Krell bowed slightly. "We are pleased to continue our discussions. Our scientists are particularly interested in meeting with your research teams." As the formal greetings continued, Dr. Foster noticed Talara watching him intently. There was something different about her compared to the other Viridians, a quickness in her eyes, an eagerness in her movements. Later that day, the scientific delegation met in a large conference room at the research center. Dr. Foster, Dr. Williams, and Dr. Martinez represented Earth, while Talara and 2 other Viridian scientists represented their world. "Before we begin," Dr. Foster said, "we've made some discoveries about our biological differences that we'd like to share." The presentation began with basic comparisons of human and Viridian cells, then moved to neural processing speeds and perception rates. As Dr. Foster explained their findings, He noticed Talara nodding along, while the other Viridians looked increasingly uncomfortable. In summary, Dr. Foster concluded, we believe that while Viridians live longer in years, humans may experience a similar amount of subjective time due to our faster processing speeds. We don't live less, we live more intensely. The room was silent for a moment. Then Talara stood up. I have reached the same conclusion independently, she said. My research confirms everything Dr. Foster has presented. The other Viridian scientists shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a male named Jorax, spoke. This is an interesting theory, but it lacks rigorous proof. We have proof, Dr. Martinez said. He brought out the devices he had built. These neural interfaces can temporarily adjust our perceptions. With your permission, we'd like to demonstrate. After some discussion, Jorax agreed to try the device. Dr. Martinez carefully attached it to the Viridian's temple. This will speed up your perception to human rates for just 2 minutes, Martinez explained. Ready? Jorax nodded. Martinez activated the device. The change in the Viridian was immediate and startling. His large eyes widened further. His breathing quickened. His hands gripped the table edge so hard his knuckles paled from blue to white. After 2 minutes, Martinez turned off the device. Jorax slumped in his chair, visibly shaken. What did you experience? Talara asked eagerly. Jorax took a moment to compose himself. Everything was more. The colors, the sounds, the thoughts. It was overwhelming. I felt... He struggled to find the words. I felt alive in a way I never have before. Dr. Foster nodded. That's how we experience every moment of our lives. Talara stepped forward. I want to try it too. One by one, the Viridians experienced human perception rates. Each reacted differently, some with fear, others with excitement, all with profound shock. When it was Talara's turn, she didn't want the experience to end. This is how we were meant to live, she said when Martinez finally turned off the device. This is what our ancestors gave up for longer lives. That evening, as news of the experiment spread through both delegations, Ambassador Krell requested a private meeting with Ambassador Hayes and Dr. Foster. Your discovery has created quite a stir among our people, Krell said. His usual composure was gone, replaced by a troubled expression. Some are questioning the choices our ancestors made. We didn't intend to cause problems, Hayes said. We just wanted to correct a misunderstanding about our species. The misunderstanding may have been greater than any of us realized, Krell replied. Talara has been searching our oldest archives. She found evidence that our species once lived at speeds similar to humans. 10,000 years ago, our scientists developed methods to slow our biological processes, extending our lifespans but reducing our intensity of experience. Dr. Foster leaned forward. So we may have more in common than we thought. Indeed, Krell said. The question now is, what do we do with this knowledge? News of the discovery spread quickly through both human and Viridian communities. 3 days after the initial demonstration, the United Earth Council called for a special meeting with the full Viridian delegation. The meeting would take place in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Geneva Interspecies Center, with representatives from all Earth nations present. Dr. Foster barely slept the night before. He sat in his hotel room, reviewing his notes one last time. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Dr. Williams entered, looking as tired as he felt. Big day tomorrow, she said, sitting on the edge of his desk. How are you holding up? Nervous, Foster admitted. What we say tomorrow could change relations between our species forever. I hope we're doing the right thing. The truth is always the right thing, Williams said, even when it's uncomfortable. Across the city, in the Viridian embassy, a heated argument was taking place. Ambassador Krell faced the full Viridian High Council, who had arrived from their homeworld after hearing about the human discovery. These findings must be suppressed, Elder Melora insisted. If our people learn that our ancestors chose longevity over intensity of experience, it could cause social unrest. It's too late for that, Talara countered. She had been invited to the meeting due to her research. The information is already spreading among both our peoples. We must address it openly. Krell paced the room, his tall form casting a long shadow. I agree with Talara. The humans have offered us a chance to experience their perception rate. Perhaps this exchange of experience will lead to greater understanding between our species. Or to the downfall of our way of life. Another elder warned, what if our youth decide to adopt human perception rates? They would burn through their lives in a fraction of the time. That should be their choice, Talara said firmly. Not ours to make for them. The next morning, humans and Viridians gathered in the assembly hall. The room hummed with tension and excitement. Dr. Foster and his team sat at a long table facing the audience, alongside Ambassador Hayes and other human officials. The Viridian delegation sat opposite them, with Ambassador Krell and Talara in prominent positions. Elder Melora and the other council members sat slightly apart, their faces unreadable. Ambassador Hayes opened the session. We are gathered here to discuss a discovery that may fundamentally change how our species understand each other. I invite Dr. Alan Foster to present the findings. Foster stood and walked to the podium. He looked out at the sea of human and alien faces, took a deep breath and began. For weeks, our team has studied the biological differences between humans and Viridians. What we discovered was surprising. The longer Viridian lifespan isn't just about better cellular repair or slower aging. It's about a completely different experience of time itself. He showed simple charts and diagrams, explaining in clear terms how human brains processed information roughly 5 times faster than Viridian brains. He avoided technical jargon, making sure everyone could understand. In practical terms, this means a human experiences about 5 times more conscious moments in each minute than a Viridian does. Our emotions are more intense, our thoughts faster, our learning quicker. We live shorter lives in years, but each year contains far more subjective experience. A murmur ran through the crowd. Foster continued. To put it simply, a 70-year human life might contain as much subjective experience as a 350-year Viridian life. We don't live less, we live more intensely. The murmuring grew louder. Foster nodded to Dr. Martinez, who stood up. To help everyone understand this difference, Martinez said, we've developed a device that allows temporary adjustment of perception rates. With permission from Viridian authorities, we're prepared to offer this experience to anyone who wishes to try it. Ambassador Krell rose from his seat. I have experienced this adjustment personally. It was enlightening. The Viridian High Council has agreed to allow volunteer participants from our delegation to try these devices. Elder Melora stood abruptly. I must object. We have not fully studied the safety implications. With respect, Elder, Talara said, also rising, I have additional information to share. She turned to face both delegations. I have been researching our oldest historical records, 10,000 years ago, before our longevity treatments were developed. Viridians experienced time at rates much closer to humans. Our ancestors called it vivid time. The Viridian section of the audience erupted in surprised conversation. Talara continued once they quieted. The records suggest our ancestors made a conscious choice to extend physical lifespan by slowing neural processes. What we gained in years we lost in intensity of experience. This was called the Great Trade in our history. Elder Melora's face darkened with anger. These are obscure references taken out of context. You overstep, young scientist. I have the records here, Talara said calmly, holding up a data device. Anyone may examine them. A tall Viridian rose from the audience. He wore the insignia of the Science Academy. I am Professor Nax. I specialize in ancient Viridian history and I can confirm that such references exist in our oldest archives. They have been largely ignored, but they are real. The assembly hall filled with excited discussion from both species. Ambassador Hayes had to call for order several times before the room quieted. What does this mean for our relations going forward? She asked once silence returned. Ambassador Krell stepped forward. I propose a new type of exchange program. Not just of knowledge or resources, but of experience. Humans who wish to experience life at our pace and Viridians who wish to experience life at yours. That would require permanent neural adjustments, Dr. Williams pointed out. Our temporary devices aren't meant for long-term use. Our medical technology could make such adjustments safely, Krell replied, for both species. A young Viridian stood up from the audience. I want to try the human rate, she called out. I want to experience vivid time, even if just for a moment. Others joined her, both Viridians and humans expressing interest in experiencing life at the other species' rate. Elder Melora watched with growing concern. This is moving too quickly, she warned. We need time to consider the implications. With respect, Elder, Talara said quietly. Perhaps that's always been our problem. We take too much time. Perhaps we could learn something from human speed. The meeting continued. Dr. Foster watched the interactions with growing hope. What had begun as misunderstanding and condescension was transforming into genuine curiosity and respect. A young human diplomat approached him during a break. Do you think some humans might choose to slow down to their rate? She asked. To live longer lives? Foster considered this. Perhaps. And some Viridians might choose to speed up to ours. The important thing is that now both species understand there's no right or wrong way to experience time, just different choices with different benefits. Across the room, Ambassador Krell and Talara were deep in conversation with several human scientists. Their faces showed excitement rather than the condescension that had marked the first contact. They're not laughing at our lifespans anymore, Dr. Williams noted, coming to stand beside Foster. No, Foster agreed. Now they're wondering what it's like to live as we do, fully and intensely, even if for a shorter time. 1 year after the historic meeting in Geneva, Earth prepared to celebrate the anniversary of first contact with the Viridians. The once empty field where their ship had first landed was now the site of a joint research center. Its gleaming buildings, shaped in a blend of human and Viridian architectural styles. Dr. Alan Foster walked slowly through the main laboratory, nodding to researchers of both species. At 63, his movements were a bit stiffer than before, but his eyes remained sharp and curious. He stopped to watch a young Viridian scientist working with a human colleague, both wearing matching lab coats with the new interspecies cooperation emblem. Dr. Foster, called a familiar voice. Talara approached, her blue skin now decorated with the markings of a senior scientist, a promotion she had received for her groundbreaking work. Just the person I wanted to see. Foster smiled. How are the adjustment trials going? Better than expected, Talara said, leading him to a quieter corner of the lab. 20 Viridians have now successfully adjusted to human perception rates on a semi-permanent basis, and 15 humans have slowed their perception to our natural rate. Any side effects? Foster asked. Minor ones, mostly during the adjustment period. Our medical teams are handling them well. She paused. The more interesting effects are psychological. Foster raised an eyebrow. How so? The Viridians who speed up report feeling more alive, more passionate. They say colors are brighter, music more moving, emotions more intense. But some also find it overwhelming and have requested periodic returns to their normal rate. And the humans who slow down? They describe a profound sense of peace. One said it was like being in deep meditation all the time. They report feeling less anxious, more thoughtful. Talara smiled. Both groups are learning that each way of experiencing time has its benefits and costs. Outside the research center, preparations for the anniversary celebration were underway. Workers set up stages, food stalls, and display screens in the large plaza. The event would be broadcast across Earth and to the Viridian homeworld. Ambassador Susan Hayes, now 72, supervised the arrangements from a temporary command center. Despite offers to slow her perception rate and extend her life, she had declined. I've lived my whole life at human speed, she had told reporters. I'll finish it that way too. Her aide, a young man named Frank Lewis, approached with a tablet. The Viridian High Council's ship has entered orbit, Ambassador. They'll land in 2 hours. Elder Melora is coming too? Hayes asked, surprised. Yes, ma'am. Apparently she requested it specifically. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. Elder Melora had been the most resistant to the changes following the discovery. Her presence at the celebration was unexpected but welcome. Across the plaza, Lieutenant Olivia Garcia, now promoted to captain, directed security teams consisting of both human and Viridian officers. The past year had seen the beginning of a joint defense initiative, with each species learning from the other's tactics and technologies. The perimeter is secure, reported a Viridian security officer named Drix. He had chosen to speed up his perception rate to human levels for his work, claiming it made him more effective in crisis situations. Good, Garcia replied. Check the north entrance again. I saw some issues with the scanner there earlier. Drix nodded and left quickly. Garcia watched him go, still amazed at how well he had adapted to human speed. Not all Viridians took to it so easily. As evening approached, crowds began to gather. Humans and Viridians mingled freely, some using portable translation devices, others attempting to speak each other's languages. Children from both species played together in a special area, seemingly untroubled by their differences. The Viridian High Council's ship landed precisely on schedule. Ambassador Krell emerged, first followed by Elder Melora and other council members. They were greeted by Ambassador Hayes and Earth officials with formal ceremonies. Dr. Foster, Dr. Williams, and Dr. Martinez were honored guests at the main reception. As they entered the Grand Hall, Foster noticed Elder Melora watching him. She approached slowly, her ancient eyes unreadable. Dr. Foster, she said, her translator conveying her deep voice. I have been wanting to speak with you. Foster bowed slightly. I'm honored, Elder Melora. When we first met, I thought your species lived half-lives because of your short spans, she said. I believed we Viridians had found the superior path. I was wrong. Foster was surprised by her candor. Both our ways have value. Yes, that is what I have come to understand. She paused. Yesterday, I tried your perception device. You did? Foster couldn't hide his shock. Elder Melora had been the strongest voice against the neural adjustments. I experienced 5 minutes at human speed, she said. It was overwhelming, beautiful and terrifying at once. I felt more in those 5 minutes than I have in years of my normal life. Will you adjust permanently? Foster asked. No, I am too old to change so fundamentally, but I understand now what we traded away eons ago. Her gaze drifted to where younger Viridians were laughing with human friends. They have choices we never did. The formal ceremony began with speeches from leaders of both species. Ambassador Hayes spoke of new beginnings and mutual respect. Ambassador Krell emphasized how much both species had learned from each other. The highlight of the evening came when Talara and Dr. Martinez unveiled their latest invention, a neural harmonizer that allowed temporary sharing of perception rates between paired individuals. A human and Viridian volunteer demonstrated the device, their expressions changing in wonder as they briefly experienced life through each other's nervous systems. This is just the beginning, Talara announced to the crowd. We're developing ways to share not just perception rates but memories and knowledge directly between our species. After the ceremony, Foster found himself at a quiet table with Dr. Williams and Ambassador Hayes. They watched the celebration continue around them. Did you ever imagine it would turn out this way? Williams asked, sipping her drink. When they first laughed at our short lives? Never, Hayes admitted. I thought we'd be lucky to establish basic trade agreements. Instead, we're seeing the beginning of a true merging of cultures. Foster nodded toward a group of young Viridians who had adjusted to human rates. They were dancing to earth music, their movements matching the quick beat perfectly. Nearby, a group of humans who had slowed their perception sat in a circle with Viridian elders, engaged in the slow, methodical conversation that Viridians traditionally favored. We're learning from each other, Foster said. They're gaining our intensity, our passion, our ability to live fully in each moment. And we're gaining their patience, their perspective, their ability to think deeply about long-term consequences. The best of both worlds, Hayes agreed. As the celebration continued into the night, Foster thought about the journey of the past year. What had begun with misunderstanding and condescension had transformed into one of the most profound exchanges in human history. The Viridians had stopped ridiculing human lifespans. Instead, some were choosing to experience life as humans did, brightly, intensely, with each moment lived to its fullest. And some humans were choosing to experience life as Viridians did, slowly, thoughtfully, with each moment examined in its fullness. In the end, it wasn't about how long you lived. It was about how fully you experienced each moment you had. And in that understanding, two very different species had found common ground.